tomorrow night.
We need Tom Brady to move teams every day.
Yeah, right, exactly.
All right, everybody's here. TrueHoop TV, thank you for joining us. We have a special guest today. Of course, David Thorpe is here. Hi, David.
Hello.
I wanted to do the mic check earlier in case we go all the time without talking to you like yesterday. And Ben Weber, thank you so much for joining us live from Venice, California. How are you, sir?
Hey, Henry.
Thanks, everybody. So Ben is a special character in my life. In, I think, 1994. Is that right?
I think that's right.
We became college roommates at NYU. We lived on Avenue B and 8th Street.
Yep, between 8th and 9th.
And no. We lived on 8th.
No, 8th between B and C.
8th and B and C, yeah.
Yeah.
You lived on B between 8th and 9th later, right?
Later, that's
9th,
right. Around the corner. Yeah.
Anyway, so he's among our friend group, Ben's the famous person because he's been in the whole million things. I'm going to mangle your resume right now, but you were Skippy in Sex and the City. That's all I got.
He was what?
You have like a whole career, and you're like my best friend, and I can't remember anything else right now.
Wait, what was he in Sex and the City?
Skippy.
Oh,
in season 1, he was the web guy on Sex and the City.
I remember you telling me this. That's right.
Actually, when we lived together, he got a very exciting, like, first big assignment. I'm just gonna continue mangling Ben's career, which was he was in Twister, and he got a role in Twister, and they did this like super cool, clever thing, which is his role was called video crew, and they sent the first 2 acts of the script and left the 3rd out, and it was notable that there were no lines for video crew in the first 2 acts, but they're like, we planned big things for video crew in the 3rd act. But did that pan out?
No. I stayed pretty quiet the whole movie. It was mainly like behind the camera.
Yeah.
And I think I rechristened the character Video Crew.
Yeah, because it's more French that way.
It's like yeah.
So Ben's here for a few reasons. One is because yesterday in the chat, oh, by the way, if anyone here has questions, click the little chat button, put them in the chat, and we will get to them. If you'd like to ask them on video, use the word video in all caps in your question, and we will get to it. First, we're going to talk for a half hour or so. So in the chat yesterday, Ben and my friend Randy were talking about beating me in one-on-one, and it struck me that it probably was worth exploring some of those issues a little bit with Ben. So Ben, let's talk about basketball in 1994 in New York City.
Yeah, there was a big 1-on or 3-on-3 scene in Tompkins Square Park.
Yeah. And
I just was thinking about this right before we started. There was a guy that used to play there. Do you remember the mailman?
No.
There was a mailman that would play, like, once he got
in uniform,
finished with his route, he would sort of park his mailbag, which would be on, like, those roller New York City mailbags. And then he would play in hard sole shoes.
Yeah.
And he was the mailman.
This was a period when New York City had, like, we were not far from West 4th Street where they're making, they were like Mario Ellie was playing there one day when I walked by. Like, it was an incredibly high level. There's also some of the best street basketball in the history of planet Earth was being played in the city at that time. This was not that scene, right? This was Tompkins Square Park, which was maybe the druggiest basketball that's ever been played. I don't know if you remember, I can picture clearly this one guy who was like maybe 5'11", super muscly, but like lean and good, but so loud. And I remember him like pausing the game mid-game to go and do another line of coke. Like, that was just like openly just like, hold on, I need a bump. Like, go do more coke. Do you remember this guy, James, who would yell at me all the time? Older guy.
Yeah.
He just, like, took it upon himself to coach me, and he'd be like, oh man, if I could be 19 again, like, oh, like, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Like, I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
I did actually play on West 4th Street, but it was only because I'd done an episode of Sex and the City that shot there. So there is footage of me on West 4th Street. Like, and I had only been in New York for like 2 minutes at that point. Like, and I was like, I've made it. I've already made it. I'm here at West 4th Street. But no, we played a lot of, when I first transferred to NYU, I was with the NYU basketball team, strangely, because as a transfer student, it was like the only room that they had. So I was with
In the dorm.
in the dorms. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was really strange because they were all really into at like midnight putting on their rollerblades and like rollerblading from NYU all the way up to like, the park and going back like in the middle of the night. And that was really fun. So I remember like my very first entree into New York was like through basketball.
Yeah. So you were like 6 feet tall,
Yeah.
roughly. You were like the shortest dude, right? Like all these Adam Crawford and Nate Richter, they're all like basketball team. Yeah. That was weird.
I know.
Well, what did your one-on-one games look like? Because when I was a college student, which was in the 80s, mid 80s, we were stupid. We would literally be sitting in our nice air-conditioned apartment. It'd be 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or in the summertime, and 100 degrees outside. In a maybe 95 in a few hours, you should go play now. But we were 20 years old, so we're like, no, let's wait till noon.
Oh.
So at noon we would drive. None of us had air conditioning in our cars either, by the way. We would drive to the projects by where we lived, where the outdoor courts at night, where we played 5-on-5, an amazing game. My friends with the Celtics, the guys who played who lived there were the Rockets, and they were amazing series. And everyone else gambled on the sides of it. But during the day, nobody was there. It was a ghost town. And we would play one-on-one. I made the game up. One-on-one to 100.
Oh, come on.
Okay? Twos only, no threes that I remember. And there was one water fountain, the best water of all time, because we're always so hot and thirsty. And whoever got to 25 first and 50, 75, you go get water. It was your water break. And then you change baskets, because one basket, the rim was a little higher than the other. This is what we did. We played to 100. And we were in amazing shape, as you can imagine. But amazing, no one died, because it was incredibly hot and humid in Gainesville, Florida. What were your one-on-one games looking like?
I think we played 21, right, Henry? Didn't we play? We played a lot of 21.
A lot of 21.
Yeah.
With tips.
With tips, that's right. And I remember there was one hoop that was really friendly. That was like on the Avenue B side. I feel like a Tompkins Square Park. And
Breakfast Nook.
Yeah, we played. It was called the Breakfast Nook. It was like there was like
it was like a side.
Yeah. That's right. We played a lot. We had a lot of epic games out there.
Yeah, I really would always go for
where you played. What was the name of where you played?
Tompkins Square Park. So this was literally, like, to set the scene, the time and place of the musical Rent. Like, the guy who wrote the musical Rent was living nearby and wrote it about this scene. Like, we're playing basketball in that scene, which was sort of crazy. But yeah, we had mostly played 3-on-3, and there'd be a thriving scene. I feel like I was organizing my life very badly and would have, a fair amount of schoolwork and real work. I think I worked at the NYU Health Center then, and or health club. But if I had, basically, I felt like if you could organize it, if there was free time and the weather was decent, like, this is what everything was driving toward. It was like, can you get to the court, right? Or can we get together would be even better to the court. And then the other thing that was stressing me out at that time was like, can you have a $1 bill? Because like the greatest treat in life, like you're getting the best water ever was, and Ben totally started this, was if you show up and play all your basketball, God knows how long we played, then you take your $1 bill to the corner deli and you buy a cold Gatorade out of the fridge. And you walk around like a king. You're just drenched in disgusting sweat. And you're like, this is the best drink I've ever had in my entire life. And then we go home and I'd say, 7 times out of 10, Goya brand boxed rice and beans.
I have a fun little drinking story like that where one of my roommates, his dad worked for like a wine distributorship. I think a pretty large liquor and beer distributorship.
Let's connect with that guy soon, huh?
My college roommate, who I played with every day, does that for a living. He actually represents his company at Sam's Club nationally. So he's always flying everywhere. So when I turned 50, you couldn't come down there. You just did a Troop TV for me. My wife threw a party. He sent more alcohol you could possibly. We still have alcohol here 5 years later from the amount he sent me from over the years. But so we played one-on-one. One of my roommate's dad, when he sent a bunch of liquor to us because he was getting rid of it, there was a lot of Evian water bottles. Well, we were poor college kids. No one was buying water in the 80s. If my friends used a hose or the water fountain if you were playing ball. So we went through that Evian very, very fast. There was one bottle left. I'll never forget this ever. my buddy Greg Weissel, we call him Whitey. Everyone should have a college friend named Whitey, and who acted like him, super athletic, nicest guy in the world. Whitey was driving, and I unbuckled my seatbelt early. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, when you're parking, I'm out of this car so fast to get that last ball of Evian. Dumbest thing ever. I learned my lesson. Shut your mouth. He ended up pulling in 3 inches away from the car to my right.
Oh.
So we could get out and get the last bottle of Evian. One of the greatest life lessons I ever learned. Just shut your mouth and you'll get something done. But if you talk early, you're screwed. So when I see him, he lives in Colorado and we still talk about that. It was the smartest thing he ever did because he's not the smartest guy. That was a brilliant move by him.
David, I know a thing or two about your career. I'm not sure like don't say anything is like totally the life you're living.
But there's a time and place, probably a better way to put it. A time and a place to talk. Don't say a word about getting that last bottle of water until you have it in your hands.
So Ben, you use the NBA to be more productive in your day job. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I'm probably not the first to notice this, but it is weird. This is a weird time. I mean, it's a really weird time. And I think when this whole thing first started, we were going to be, have a bunch of time to sort of like refocus on what's important, and we're going to have family, and it's going to be, just the essentials, of course, as a creative person, I was like, this is great. I'm going to work on my novel or write my screenplay or whatever. But it's really hard to not have the reward or that distraction that, that basketball is. It's always been that, when I couldn't focus, I'd go outside and I shoot hoops, or if something was bothering me, it was always this stress reliever. And so it's weird to not, it's always been the kind of the carrot for me. And it's just, I wonder how other people are dealing with it. How do you mentally, using meditation, like you were talking about, David, yesterday, or, just how you connect the mental and the physical part, because for me, when there is a hoop actually just right outside. This is where my son Gus plays. He plays in this alley right behind our house. And it's great because like, there's a ton of like weirdos out there at all hours of the day and night. There's a lot of like car traffic and stuff, but he is really great about, going out there whenever he wants to, move his body around. So I'm just really worried about like, how do we take care of ourselves, during this time? And so,
well, is Gus out there shooting these days, or is it
he has been, it's funny, like my kids, like a lot of kids like yours, are homeschooling this week, and like Monday was a nightmare. There was like tears, as we were trying to figure out the Zoom and the teachers and the classes. And Gus at one point got lost going from like math to humanities, and there was like, swear to God, like he was crying and like I was crying, and like it was just really but then he was able to like we found the link, and he was able to get on, and he was able to do it and stuff. And now it's great. I think they've got like PE built into their day. I don't know if it's like that for your kids. So it's funny.
Cool.
It is kind of cool. But
Love
like
that.
yesterday, I was working in the, I was working inside, and I was like on a video conference, and there's all this like banging going on. I was like, what's going on? And it's like, oh, this is the time during PE where we're supposed to be jumping rope, but nobody's jumping rope, so we're just jumping up and down in a room.
Okay.
That's
I know,
fantastic.
it's like this is the new reality of like the online homeschooling that's here.
Yeah. I was so my daughter has the same thing, but she got permission. She like forwarded what our gym is doing. Our gym's doing all these virtual workouts, which is really appreciated.
So cool.
And so she got permission to substitute that. She'd like forward what exactly the workout was to her PE teacher. But right now they're only at one time of day. So yesterday when we were making dinner, I looked out the window and my 16-year-old daughter is just like crushing it, like with the laptop on the lawn, and she's doing like hand release push-ups and just like sweaty and like working her butt off. And I was like, wow, it was weird how it's hard to make your lawn in a place that feels really intense. But like with the help of this little device, she was at the gym in her mind, right? Like,
man, who did you root for when you watched the NBA? Are you a Knicks guy?
Oh, tough question, David.
Well, that's a tough answer too.
No, he grew up in Seattle.
I'm a
Oh.
Seattle fan.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Got it. Now I get it. So are you a Laker fan, Clipper fan? What do you do?
well, it was really weird. I mean, when we moved out here in 2000, I mean, that was kind of weird because 9/11 was our moving day basically. But we moved out here, and we, when we first were here, I was like, I grew up hating the Lakers, and so I just was teaching my kid to hate everybody. I was just like, and I was like,
all of these are bad people.
I was like, I can't just teach hate. Like, there's got to be love. And so around that time, the Clippers got Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I can. And we had followed them a little bit before just because I couldn't do the Lakers. And so we became Clippers fans. We adopted the Clippers as our team. But it's really tough. I still can't look at David Schultz without, getting
Howard Schultz.
Howard Schultz, yeah.
You wait, so
David Stern and Howard Schultz.
Schultz.
I did a sorry.
What was the thing Ben has done? I'd say
I did a protest.
Yeah.
I did. I took early on. I took a hard tack against Starbucks. I tried to do this viral campaign where people would go into the store and they would get an extra straw that they didn't need, and they would throw it away after they left the store. And if enough people took green straws, we would take Howard Schultz down. It didn't really quite work that way,
Right.
but it was helpful for me.
Yeah.
It's
good. You gotta do what you can.
Yeah.
We're all gonna do our part. All right, so I'm gonna roll out my cockamamie idea. I think it's probably a bad idea, but a couple of news stories have merged in my head. So healthcare workers who are exposed to the coronavirus are isolated for 14 days and then can return to work, right? So 14 days is considered safe.
Yeah.
The Lakers are currently all being tested because they played against the Nets, who've now had 4 positive tests. I think that pretty much every NBA player is already isolated or close, right? So it occurs to me that near you, Ben, within driving distance of you, are the Lakers and the Clippers, who are maybe being tested, maybe not, but are definitely being isolated and could be like really isolated if it were a priority. Which means, perchance, there would be a way on some soundstage or in some arena or somewhere that's only broadcast, they could safely play the Western Conference Finals with nobody getting on a plane.
That's really funny. Where would they play that game?
Or just a charity game. Do it for charity.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a brilliant idea, Henry.
But they need to replace $24 billion in lost revenue. So, like, they might not be in a position to do it as a charity game. ESPN and Turner would very much like it not to be a charity game. But I feel
how quickly are those guys gaining weight? Like, how much weight are they gaining as a result of just not living the life, doing the?
I would tell you, I've been speaking to players literally every day. I'm talking to them. They're pretty focused. Like, they all think they're gonna be back playing again. The ones that aren't sure, I really try to give them that voice of, like, I think I said this the other day. There's going to be a day when you're playing competitive basketball again. We have to prepare for that now. Although I have told players, I was telling you this earlier, Ben, if guys that have like plantar fasciitis a little bit or some Achilles soreness, now's the time to shut it all down. Like, we have no excuse. But for those that don't have that, I've got guys thinking about now's a great time to lose some more weight because there's no more late night hotel traveling and room service. Like, you can really lock in on your routine and your diet. Some of these guys don't have access to exercise equipment, that makes it tougher. But within 14 days, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to get to a gym and get on a bike or your facility at your NBA arena. And these guys are just, there's more talent at basketball than we see in the NBA. And one of the ways that the lesser players get kicked out is not because they're less talented. They're not as serious. They're not as focused. They're not as disciplined. The NBA, by and large, obviously it's a generalization, are just crazy hardwired guys at being in shape and being disciplined that way.
But
they're not going to get heavy.
Are they testing more frequently than the general population, or is that just the perception because the light is on the NBA right now?
No, it's a big controversy. Actually, the NBA made a statement about it. Like, through private practitioners, they have been able to get. I mean, I guess I think I have this right, that Oklahoma City state officials brought 58 tests to the Jazz.
Correct.
Thunder
They had
game.
just got a huge shipment in that day, apparently.
Right.
A shipment, not a huge shipment.
I thought they said a big shipment. Yeah.
But I mean, the problem is a lot of people who have terrible symptoms are not getting tests. But yeah, like the Nets got tests through a private practitioner, reportedly. Right. I'm not sure how the Lakers are getting tests, but yeah, there is this kind of unfortunate window into how things flow through back channels, right? The tests that are so precious do seem to be able to be available to.
And there are more people with corona in the NBA than the regular general population, or is it just because the focus is on the NBA right now?
I would guess that it seems. I mean, look, I'm not an expert on this, but it seems to me that in any group that has had access to a lot of tests has found a lot of positives, right?
Yeah,
that's right. There's probably 100,000 people. I mean, I'm just my guess, and it's not my math. It's smarter people than me using the math. But based on the number of dead, if you extrapolate 1% out, we're looking at 100,000 people or so here. So any place where there's decently populated, especially cities. But where I live, like I can walk to a testing facility. Just opened up yesterday. That's a drive-through testing facility.
Really?
They're starting to pop up. 2 days ago, my mom got tested. Had to drive 20 minutes north. Hopefully today she finds out. I don't think she has it, but her doctor won't see her for the other thing is bothering her unless she's negative.
David, but you should drive though.
What's that?
It's a drive-through testing facility. You should not.
It was, yeah. And it is now. You can walk over there, but yeah, actually, I'm sure they would. Actually, it probably wouldn't take me. You're right. I'd have to have a car. But my point is, it's really close, and I think they're opening up in a lot of places now, at least in Clearwater.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's happening everywhere.
All right, so. Oh, actually, I thought Michelle Roberts had pretty good. She was interviewed yesterday somewhere, and she was like, someone asked her about Kevin Durant and the latest news, and she was like, "Look, there's going to be a lot of this, right? Like, she's like, I've seen estimates, as we all have, that 40 to 70% people will test positive, right? Like, we can't fly off the handle at every positive test, right? There's going to be a lot of it. It's just how it is." And then she had a little moment of like, basically like, I'm 60 something, like, oh, please, with the NBA players.
Right? Yeah, right.
That was kind of funny. And actually, I thought she had a little bit of an implication of like, they probably shouldn't be using up all the tests on these 20-year-olds. You know, I thought that was kind of interesting. Wow. Yeah, I don't see that so much as a player thing as more just like a powerful thing, right? Like it's probably the owners who can make the call to get the test, right? Yeah, celebrities are testing. It's exactly like celebrities, right? So like celebrities are getting tested a lot too. Unfamous Idris Elba probably doesn't get tested, right?
Did you see South Korea is already starting to pull back start their league again? They're starting that process.
Yeah,
they've been so successful at what they've done. They're starting to try to restart their league there. That's an optimistic sign.
But I don't know. This is just I'm the worst source for this, but I did see this morning that actually the number of cases in parts of Asia just as of yesterday is going back up again.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know if all that might be on hold. Yeah, it's a problem.
Damn.
Okay, so Ben, we have a little special thing happening here, which is Ben's been already working on a performance that involves basketball as stress relief. And we're going to be his workshop audience. He's going to do some work as if he were where would be the optimal place for this? Like a club, somewhere with a microphone and a chair, like that kind of a deal?
I had been developing this for the Electric Lodge, which is this theater that's just right down the block from me here in Venice. I've been workshopping it like on Wednesday nights in front of sort of a small group of people. And it's been a really great experience. And I was like, hopefully in the next 6 weeks or so, I was hoping to, start really, doing it, putting it up, and it's kind of crazy timing, but it is it's something that has been part of I've never been a good basketball player. I mean, I've always been like a Henry, as you know, like I'm a pretty B- athlete, but it's amazing, like the place that sports still holds for that person. You don't need to be a pro to have basketball be this, this life preserver for you. And I just had this situation like a lot of kids when I was like 10 or 11 years old. I had some unstable, home life was pretty, my mom was very like weird, undiagnosed bipolar OCD stuff. And so she would just like go off at the slightest like little thing. If I didn't put away like a fucking dessert plate, back in the dishwasher, she would go off and I would be up in my room. I had this, we had this house on Capitol Hill that was like 3 stories. And I could be up there like reading a book and it was like, I just could feel this sort of like change in the weather, it was like, feel the vibration. It was like, oh Jesus, my mom is raging. And I would like run downstairs and it would be like, somebody had their foot caught in a bear trap, and she would just be, triggered and flipped and, just really freaking out. And I would have to like put away the plate, grab my basketball and fucking head out the door. And I would go to this playground that was like a couple blocks from my house, just barely avoiding her like gnashing teeth. And I would go and I would play basketball they had a dunk hoop, like a regular hoop is 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
This was like a dunk hoop. And nowadays, like all hoops are like adjustable. You can make them go wherever you want to go. But back then you had to like kind of look for a dunk hoop because they were kind of few and far between. And I found this one that was like 5 feet, 8.5 or something, but it was enough for an 11-year-old to be able to dunk on it. And it was such great therapy to be able to go down there and just be like, fuck you, Mom.
Yeah.
Fuck you for fucking, why can't you be like, the other moms? Why do you have to be such a fucking nightmare? But the flip side of that was that I would also kind of have these sort of made up games, I'd be like, this would be, it could be a 2-on-2 game, me and Bill Gates versus Sean Kemp and Mariah Carey. The cast of Love Boat versus the cast of Saved by the Bell. It could be anybody that you wanted it to be. And that was like the flip side of the coin. I was able to just go down there and just really, and those games were epic. Those we could play, if games were to 1,000, they were refereed by a guy who was a Sasquatch riding a unicorn, and the winner would get a talking dolphin. Seemed fair enough.
My games were very different. I always imagined being either like Maurice Cheeks versus Norm Nixon. This is before your guys' time. I was always rooting for Norm Nixon. I was a Lakers fan, and I hated the Sixers. But I felt like I had to genuinely try to make every shot. I took turns, but I learned how to. I'm sure this is why I'm a coach now that can teach shooting. I could emulate anybody's shot. So I love doing Jamal Wilkes. If you guys remember the way Jamal Wilkes shot the ball.
Talent assassin.
Right, but I could do it. Right, that's true. But he also shot the ball like whirlwind. I could emulate, like when I shot like Maurice Cheeks, I took Maurice's shot. Nixon had a different shot. And so when I would play different players, that's all I ever did. I should have done what Ben did. It sounds so much more just free because I was really stressed. Like if I wasn't doing a good job for Maurice, I felt like I was letting Maurice down because I was rooting for Nixon the whole time. I was a Lakers guy. And then Magic came around. I was a little bit older then, but Magic shot below his chin at first, and that was really awkward for me because I was already old enough to kind of shoot normal. We all have similar stories like that. That's where we were a kid right away when we play those games. I play those games right now if I could.
I would go shoot around. One of the stresses that would cause me to go shoot around was like the Blazers were down like 2-1 in a playoff series, right? And then I would go outside and I think genuinely believe, even though at this point I was like 14 or something, I wasn't like a baby, that like, if I could just like win this imaginary game in my dad's gravel driveway, which is hard to dribble on, but if I can win this game with like that shot right there, then the Blazers will make it 2-2 next time.
Yeah.
Right. I felt like I could control it. Stupid. But and then if I missed, of course I'd be like, you know what? There's a loophole.
They got fouled.
Overtime! Yay!
Ben, were you a huge Sonics fan back when they were playing the Bulls?
Yes, I was.
So you were a George Karl fan?
Yeah. I have his book on my shelf right behind me.
Yeah. He's actually, I had dinner with him only once. We've talked a lot on the phone, but one dinner I found him to be incredible, like brilliant, well-read, especially on cancer, because both he and his son had it.
Oh, right.
Very empathetic. I was blown. I mean, I talked to him a lot of times before that dinner, but only business.
Yeah.
And I found him to be a breath of fresh air, more than just, I always thought he was just a jock.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all the case. But I would tell you during that time when you were rooting for them against the Bulls, I was in Turkey during, it was like maybe in 96 or 90, I think it was 96 when they played the Bulls in the finals, because I went to Turkey a few times. And I was there once with one of George Karl's good friends, because the guy was from Albany. And George used to be with the Albany Patroons.
Yeah.
And we had to get up super early in the morning to watch the games. I didn't do that. My friend did. But he said he spoke to George before one of the games. And George told him, we'll never win a championship with Gary Payton as our point guard. He said he doesn't have it. Now, I've asked George about that. He denies it. He doesn't deny it. He just says he doesn't remember the conversation. And I haven't said, well, did you think that? Because I just could tell he didn't want to go there, which is respectful. But, of course, they ended up losing the series. But I remember thinking, man, that must stink to be in the NBA Finals and think we don't got it because I can't trust our point guard to make the right play instead of thinking about himself.
But can I tell a quick George Karl story?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, 5 years ago, no more, 7 years ago, let's say, he was coaching in Denver, or maybe he had just left Denver, and was also working at ESPN. I forget that this story is already totally bonked, as you can tell. But
if he was ESPN, he had left Denver. Yeah.
Maybe Denver was out of the playoffs and he was doing some stuff on ESPN TV. That might have been it. Anyway, I definitely heavily associated him with Denver. We and some friends of ours who live across town rented a house in the Poconos, and so we went up there, and there was like a hot tub, and there was still some snow on the ground, which doesn't help my playoff story, because it probably wasn't that. Anyway, so the kids were getting in the hot tub, and they get too hot, and they jump out in the snow, and then one kid, my son, invented the idea that like he would get especially hot in a sensitive part of his body, and then put that in the snow, and then he'd yell, "Denver Nuggets," because he was like, Denver's a cold place. He would be applying that to the Nuggets. All right. So the little Denver. So, this is these things kids say that are just amazing, right? So they're yelling Denver Nuggets. So and part of me as a parent is like, oh, you're not supposed to talk about your Nuggets. But then I'm like, that's awesome and hilarious. So that happens, let's say Saturday night. And then I'll come home and unpack, and then I have to go to Bristol, 3-hour drive. And at times I would get up at 4 and beat all the traffic and get to Bristol at like 7 a.m. before anyone's ready to have a meeting with me. So I go to the ESPN cafeteria, and there's nobody there, and you can have a decent breakfast, and there's George Karl is the only other person there. And I sort of know him. We're not like friends, but he knows who I am. And so it's weird to sit separately. So I'm like, hey, George, do you mind if I join you? And he's like, oh, yeah. So I'm like, George, I have got the funniest thing to tell you. Right? And I tell him the story I just told you, and he is deadpan. Oh. No reaction whatsoever. Doesn't think Denver Nuggets should be used in that way. And the rest of our breakfast was just awkward.
That is funny. That is very interesting. All right, did Ben finish what he was saying though?
No, keep going, Ben.
I thought.
Let's do this.
Oh, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, I think eventually I got taller, and I was able to sort of stand up to my mom, and I was able to be a little bit more of a protector for, myself and my little sister, Liz, who is 5 years younger than me. But it was funny. I remember like going to the dunk hoop as I got older and thinking like, I shouldn't be here. I should probably move on with my life and, grow up in some way. And then there was also this funny thing of like, my game, none of the skills that I had at the dunk hoop really translated to like, high school basketball. Like I wasn't a very good high school basketball player. And so I remember thinking like, that's not what it's about. And it's funny because now my son, who is 11 years old, at that age, it's as much about the fantasy as it is about the game. You're not going out there. He's not going out to the alley to get better. He's going out there to kind of immerse himself in that world, to be the Portland Trailblazers, to be whoever. And you're like, when I first heard the word fantasy basketball, I was like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's awesome.
But yeah, now it's you know, and it did fulfill a similar role, like playing basketball with Henry in Tompkins Square Park. I mean, I remember when feeling overloaded with something or feeling upset or not being able to, you know, feeling stressed out, you know, to always be able to go to Tompkins Square Park and shoot around, even if you didn't know, you know, even if the competition was a little sketchy, like it was great. It was a great release. And
We were sketchy.
Yeah, I was sketchy.
You might walk to the park feeling any number of different ways, but you walk home from the park happy as hell, right?
That's right.
It's just how it works. Yeah.
Especially in like those summer evenings when it was like, you know, or
you have
when
$1.
spring was just about to start, you know, like after being cooped up for all that time, like it was great. I guess that's the takeaway, is that for a B- athlete, sports is still important. You know, I feel like
essential even.
Essential. That's even better. I like that.
I realized that story was wrong. We didn't get Gatorade. It was off-brand Gatorade, right?
Dude, I was gonna. It was called something. It wasn't Gatorade. It was like this weird. It was called like La Force or something, or like.
Yeah. And it was like the Gatorade was maybe $125 for a smaller one, but this budget one,
the high end. There was something else. What was that called? Rob's Bassist would know the name of that.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah. In a heartbeat. Okay, so we should pick some questions. How are we doing on time here?
Okay.
Yeah, 36 minutes in. Looks like so far the questions are mostly Randy Shane, mutual friend of ours, trying to stoke trouble, wondering if you were better than me, Ben. I'm fine with that. You can be better.
Good question. What are we overall? I feel like overall you have the edge on me.
I feel like I felt that if we played like a conventional one-on-one game, you would win 65% of the time. But if we played with tips, I'm going to destroy everybody. I really felt like the putback was like the best use of my skills.
I would say that overall, if we played like 1,000 games, I feel like you had the edge by like 10 games or something.
That's very thoughtful of you to say. I'm going to
play like 2-on-2 or something, or I don't know. I feel like you had the edge. I don't know. I felt like I always started hot, but then you would kind of grind it out towards the end and then
feisty.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm
played high school ball. Like I think I played middle school, but I didn't
play high school ball.
You didn't play high school ball?
I didn't. No, I was on the ski team.
Ben, you told yourself that as an excuse, but it didn't happen.
Yeah,
you just found it later.
Okay.
Yeah. So wait a second. You played with no tips, meaning if you missed, you missed. The ball was dead after the shot?
No. So in 21, there's a version called tips, right? Where if I get your miss and catch it in the air without putting my finger and put it back in, then importantly for me, not only do I get 2 points, but you go down 2 points.
Yeah.
So I
never heard of that before.
I was hunting tips. That was the thing.
Wow.
It was great.
Yeah.
Those games
also, I think it's fair to say I'm dirtier than you are. I feel like I'm more likely to not dirty. I was never intentionally dirty, but I sort of would get in this kind of intensity zone where I feel like you would maintain generally being a polite and kind person, whereas I would maybe like sweat on you, curse at you,
and definitely sweating on them,
and like just be more likely to do something exciting. Which maybe was an advantage if like for instance, this is a real thing I would do. And I learned it from watching Charles Barkley. I would get incredibly sweaty, and then I would catch the ball in the post if I could, and then I would just turn and put my head down into your stomach, and everybody just jumps back because it's super gross. And then I just broke a 4-foot jumper. It's freaking great. Like
I tore my ACL at that court. I don't know that it was against you, but I definitely did. I think it was Tompkins Square Park where I tore my ACL, and I at least partially tore it.
What year are we talking about?
That was like around that time.
That was after I moved away from the city.
Maybe, but I feel like I was playing in a pickup game over there, and I at least partially tore it over there.
I've walked through that area. I don't remember the name of the park. It's much, much, much different now, isn't it?
Except for the bathrooms. Yeah, it's super nice now. But I was in New York City, and like now there's like people pushing kids in strollers, which was like a big eye opener. Like, whoa, you wouldn't bring a baby there. And
right.
You know, like, it was really genuinely like, you know, I can't tell you how many times I saw people shoot up or like step over a person shooting up, getting into our, et cetera, et cetera.
Did your parents know that this was going on? Like I have this theory where the whole Harry Potter experience boggles my mind. Who would send their magically gifted child to a place where they're dealing with trolls in the bathroom when they were like 8 years old? Like, what? I've told my daughter this a million times, sweetie, if you had magic, then I would never have sent you to Hogwarts ever. Like, that's crazy to me. So, but your parents clearly would have sent you to Hogwarts because they didn't mind sending an 18-year-old. You weren't even 18 yet. So did they not know what was going on?
They didn't know what was going on. My parents.
Oh, okay.
Ben's dad came and stayed with us in our apartment, and
wow,
that was memorable.
Wow. The only thing my parents knew was I didn't know where any of the nighttime where we go to get breakfast in the morning, because whenever we went to a place, it was always 2 or 3 in the morning. I have no idea how I got there. Yeah. So they would come to visit. Let's go get brunch at 10, and I'd be driving God knows where, and they're like, "Where are we going?" I have no idea how to get there during the day. I always depend on someone. So what was Ben's dad there for?
Ben's dad came and somehow spent like $1,000 at the hardware store and got a rental apartment in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, Walt has got a background in building management and like apartment maintenance. So he did he was great. He was super handy. But when you live in New York, you end up getting a lot of guests. People are always
I
had this friend from college came out and visit me in New York for like a week, and he's like, "I've got $5. I'm gonna come out and stay anyways. Is that cool?" And so we did like an entire weekend where he only could spend $5.
And then he paid us back with a song.
That's right.
Remember this? Really?
And worth it. He's like, "Guys, I know you've been like, we were all broke, right?
Right.
And you get a little annoyed when a dude in New York is like living on your floor for however long and eating all your food. But then he was like, I know you've done a lot for me. Like, I want to pay you back. So I'm gonna. And then we're in the smallest kitchen in the history of the world, and he has an acoustic guitar and he plays the Sesame Street theme song.
Oh, that's wow! You remember that?
And it was perhaps the most moving musical performance I've ever seen. Like, we're square, dude. Like, that's good.
Right, we're good. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now there's more Randy. Randy, do you want to join us? Can we have Randy join us? I guess he wants to be heard. He's trying to stir up trouble. He's hopefully wearing giant headphones again.
Always.
Yeah, there you go. Hi, Randy.
Hey, Ben Weber. This
Randy.
isn't causing trouble. My original question was Henry better than that mailman who was playing in his youth?
Oh.
It was not, was he better than Ben? I know the answer to that, and I'm not telling. More importantly, Ben, I do want to see if which one of you two remembers. It was you, Henry, and I think the guy's name was Mike, against me, DePuntis, and Manthe in 3-on-3 games during so-called work. And then we went back and we didn't shower and we just kind of worked. But who covered Manthe?
Not me.
It had to be Ben, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I remember that. That's so fun.
Was that a very niche question?
Yeah. The audience is going to love it once I start sharing Manthe's stories offline.
Yeah. So I worked for Randy, and his partner was Chris Manthe, who was a source of a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And feisty. He would take the feisty crown out of everybody there for sure.
5'4".
Yeah, 5'4". He wasn't 5'4", was he?
Yeah, he is. 5'4".
5'4".
Yeah.
So you got to be feisty when you're 5'4".
Apparently.
Just
to note, David Thorpe,
yes.
Chris Manthe once got into and lost a fight with those kids that sell candy door to door. And I asked him, because he was older at this point, I said, "What happened? Why didn't you just say no?" He's like, "Well, you know me." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was a stupid question." I said, "Then how did you lose?" He's like, "Even Ali lost at the end."
That's a great response.
Yes, because he didn't usually lose.
Right. It's good.
He tried to start a fight with Cliff Robinson.
Yes, that's correct too. Yes, he did.
Fighters are fighters. Fighters fight.
UConn. Yes, at UConn. Yes.
All right. Henry, I see Judy put something here. Caleb asked about one-on-one training.
Yeah.
I don't let my players play one-on-one. I did many years ago, but injuries to me are the single most important thing to avoid in the off season. Mm-hmm. So we try to go game speed, game intensity. I would argue that we were successful at it. My players would, I think, say the same. They play enough 5-on-5. They have enough competitive games. even in practices starting in training camp. They don't need to do it in April, May, June, July, August, whenever they're here. Just that contact, that landing on someone's foot, whatever, we've avoided all of that for probably since 2007, 2008. I've said no pickup, nothing like that at all. We just try to I have synergy, so I can see what's going on in games. I can build that kind of curriculum in our practice that day and simulate that without the competition. We do shooting competition.
Do it, though?
What's that?
Your players don't play one-on-one, but NBA players do?
None of my NBA players, none of my pros ever play one-on-one with me.
No, not yours, but the other NBA players do play
one-on-one.
I
think they do. I don't. Yeah. I think it's ridiculous. I don't think they're really going that hard. So you're not getting the reward you want, and the risk is way higher. It makes no sense to me at all that you reverse that ratio. You should have amazing reward and almost no risk, which is what we're trying to do. The idea of playing. So my guys know no one-on-one, no. The only thing we do competitively, which we do a lot of, is shooting drills. And we don't always do it against each other. Sometimes do it against the clock. And then I remember, I've been doing this now for decades. So I can remember a drill where a guy reached a certain number of made baskets within 2 minutes, and the guys are shooting for that. So they're very, it's just the nature of the beast is they're super competitive guys. If I let them play against, I tell you the last time I let them play, I had Solomon Alabi, who was drafted second round by the Raptors, played. And I've just gone blank on who he played against. He played a George Washington, 6'10" kid. They're both from Nigeria. Masai Ujiri sent them both to me. And Solomon turned, he's 7'1". He turned an elbow Joe in the mouth, blooded everywhere. But these guys were like best friends, so they didn't start in a fight. Hashim Thabit was there, and he was thinking, I would have to fight. And I'm like, exactly. That's why I don't want to play one-on-one. That's when I stopped it right then. It was just one post move, and boom, right in the face, blood everywhere. Like, I just can't afford that. So we just don't do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense. All right, I guess it's tradition. We have to have Gerard back. He has one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. Can you believe that's 45 minutes? Just talking about college. It goes fast. This is our grand tradition. 3 for 3.
What's up, guys? It seems like it is a tradition. We're going to keep it going as long as this thing happens.
We're going to hang in there. We're going to keep it. Some things matter, all right?
So as far as the NBA goes, I think it's realistic that they might not play basketball at all, right? The rest of the season, just given what's happening. And I was thinking about this as it relates to tennis, the WTA and ATP. You see the majors, or like the French Open, just said, all right, we're moving our tournament to September, which of course the US Open's pissed about because that's sort of the end of their major. But they can do that because, each major operates on its own. With tennis being played in multiple countries, it seems to make sense to me to cancel it because you can't control where these players are coming from. They all fly in with their own teams on private planes. There's too many variables. With the NBA, kind of similar though, no, right? Even though we all play in the United States, there are too many people that come in and out of this league. And with this idea of force majeure, which is in the CBA, there's serious economic consequences. So at what point are they saying, look, without saying it, money and economics might have to matter more than the health of people? And I feel like that's sort of what they're arguing amongst themselves, or not arguing, but discussing amongst themselves internally right now. Can we afford to not play any more games because it's going to seriously affect BRI?
There's a matter of law in a lot of places now, right? And there likely will be more of that, right? So it might be illegal to gather enough people to play a game, right? The president said groups of 10 yesterday.
Which there's already more of that for basketball, right? It's already
right.
Yeah. Right.
So to me, I don't think they're gonna be able to break those laws on the grounds of the U.S. Or that's not a law, the 10 thing, but there may be laws, right? Like different cities, different states, etc. I don't think they could play in New York right now. I don't think they could play in California right now, right? But to me, will they be able to innovate a product that they can actually make money on and put on TV? I think they're probably going to have to think about that, right? I don't know what it's going to be. But I was musing earlier about sequestering the Lakers and Clippers individually for 2 weeks, and then maybe they could play. It's totally out of whack with the NBA season, but people would watch it, and it would be big money, right?
You think
I think.
Is the NBA going to adopt the 6-foot rule? You have to keep away.
No defense.
No, but when Henry says innovate, though, that made me think, would there be an appetite to see the world's best shooters do shooting competitions on their own basket the ball is disinfected just as a way to generate some revenue. And we're all dying to watch something that we don't know what's going to happen at the end, because in TV shows and movies, you pretty much can always, not always, but mostly figure out what's going on. You can't. Like if Steph Curry versus Donovan Mitchell and LeBron James versus Paul George, you can't play one-on-one, so do shooting stuff. You can do that. It's a really interesting idea to think about.
For sure. And also, I mean, some people have been saying like every player should play themselves in NBA 2K.
Yeah.
I'm like, honestly, that's a better consumable product for young people than an actual NBA game, right? And that's what they're doing. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, they're like, what have you been doing all day? He's like, I've been playing video games all day, right? So to me, like, I think we should do that for sure.
I'm definitely jealous of that. Like the person that just escaped down that rabbit hole. It sounds fabulous.
Actually, to be totally honest, Ben, we can match this with your fantasy in the, leaving your house with your yelling mother. You could, in theory, literally go to the NBA 2K court and actually play against LeBron James, right? Like awesome. you could be a player on the court too, right?
No.
Come on, that's gonna happen. I bet that's gonna happen.
Love it.
That's gonna happen. And to me, we should at least do that, and then we can worry about these other things too.
I mean, innovate for sure, right? I wonder, because I think I fear that that's the immediate worry, because it's what they know and the current future of the league. But use this opportunity as a point to think about innovation. And Henry, I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, likely going to talk to Michelle Roberts later today and find out, hey, I know like you're not thinking about innovation right now, but maybe you should be. And here's some ideas that you guys might want to think about for the future of this league.
I mean, everything that works on YouTube in the sports world. So like yesterday, I was just enthralled by this. I don't know if you saw this, but some famous soccer player just wailing, this curving, this beautiful shot, right? I'm like, NBA players can do stuff like that. And it's not been beautifully shot alone in the gym, but now's our chance, like go make those videos. That's probably a better way to reach my son who's right over there than an NBA game, right? So now's our chance. Get your cameras going, people.
So we do a ton of shooting drills for time on 2 different baskets. You can do 4 different baskets. So as an example, you have to make 3 shots in a row from the right corner. 3 in a row. This is one of 100 drills. Ryan Pannone made up most of them. The guy who coaches the Bayhawks now. Then you go to the wing. You got to make 2 in a row. And if you miss 2 in a row, you go back to the spot before. And then at the top of the key is 3 in a row. You got to go down and back. And then if you can do all that, 5 spots total, down and back, then you go to the top of the key, all behind 3, and you see how many you can make total within 2 minutes. Okay. Or we have 2-minute drills. We have 3-minute drills, and unbelievably competitive stuff, incredibly competitive stuff, where these guys are so focused. And the really elite shooters, like you guys know my connection with Kevin Martin. Kevin, no one ever beats Kevin ever. And his scores are always the highest of all time. In fact, we gave Kevin his own rules. We couldn't do the regular rules for Kevin. We had to do 3 at every spot in a row, or 4 in a row at every spot in a row. And you had to go back 2 spots if you missed one, because he just didn't miss. And we might even say if you hit the rim, you lose a turn or whatever we had to do. And he would be so locked in. And that's what I mean about creating intensity. Imagine if it's on national TV and it's Steph Curry versus Clay. You could do team versus team and have a team champion. There's some really fun things you could do. And then think about, if someone's written, I think about trick shots or horse dunk competitions. And there's things they could do that are safe. And I think people will be watching, because, again, they have nothing else to watch. How long before they stop doing new shows? Like, they can't film new TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
They're all on hiatus.
Yeah. Okay, David. So David's going to publish some actual stuff about actual basketball on Friday. Why don't we add this? Why don't you explain the rules of this game, and we'll see if we can get people to actually compete against Kevin Martin's scores, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, there's 100 different shooting games we do. I'll definitely put some up there.
Let's do one.
Again, Ryan Pannone made most of them up at night, because our guys would shoot at night. And you can't just say, go make 100 shots, because that'll take 5 minutes. You have to challenge them. And again, it's got to be right. It's got to be game realistic too. So there's pressure. And so I'll talk to Kevin, but I'll talk to Ryan. I'll print some up there. That's a good idea.
Okay. Beautiful.
They're fun.
All right. We're overtime. Ben, Gerard, David, everyone who joined in, thank you for your questions. Same time and place tomorrow and Friday. And there you go. Stay safe.
Thanks, guys.